Are you personally responsible for everything President Trump says?
No, my role as the chairman of the...
Before President Trump says something as President of the United States, does he call you up and say, Stephen, I'm about to say this and I want your approval? Does he do that?
Never.
And after the president says something, does he call you up and say, Stephen, was that okay? Are you okay with this?
Nope, I have an advisory role.
Okay. Now, sometimes intelligent adults, reasonable people disagree. Is that true?
Very often.
Is it part of your job description when you disagree with something?
Senate hearings often blend theater with substance. For some lawmakers, the priority lies in signaling to constituents. For others, it is about probing nominees for real answers. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana has made a reputation out of balancing both, wielding humor as a scalpel while cutting through evasive testimony. His latest questioning of Dr. Myron, a nominee for the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, offers a revealing snapshot of the broader struggle between fiscal responsibility, monetary independence, and political accountability. In a few brisk minutes, Kennedy asked questions that touched on presidential appointments, economic policy alignment, the independence of advisors, fiscal recklessness in Congress, and the integrity of Federal Reserve decision-making. What emerged was not just a dialogue, but a miniature masterclass in the interplay between politics and economics. This commentary will dissect that exchange across several dimensions: Kennedy's rhetorical tactics, the substance of the fiscal monetary debate, the role of presidential loyalty, the independence of the Federal Reserve, and the broader implications for American governance.
Senator Kennedy.
Dr. Myron, do presidents, any president, generally appoint their enemies?
Thank you, Senator, for the question.
Don't thank me. It just takes up time.
I believe that when they nominate them,
Do they generally appoint their enemies?
they don't believe they are when they're when they're making.
Do presidents, any president, generally appoint people that they agree with on social and economic policy?
I believe that presidents appoint people whose
That's a yes, isn't it?
Yes.
Because we live in the real world, don't we?
Yes.
Are you personally responsible for everything President Trump says?
No, my role as the chairman of the...
Before President Trump says something as President of the United States, does he call you up and say, Stephen, I'm about to say this and I want your approval? Does he do that?
Never.
And after the president says something, does he call you up and say, Stephen, was that okay? Are you okay with this?
Nope, I have an advisory role.
Okay. Now, sometimes intelligent adults, reasonable people disagree. Is that true?
Very often.
Is it part of your job description when you disagree with something the president says to call a press conference and say, he's wrong about this and let me explain to you why? Is that part of your job description?
Not as CH.
Is that part of the job description of any aide that you know of to President Biden?
No.
How about for President Obama?
No.
How about for President Clinton?
No.
We don't live in La La Land, do we? Do we?
No.
Now, monetary policy is important, and the Fed is in charge of it. But monetary policy is not the only thing that's important. Fiscal policy is important, isn't it?
Fiscal policy is extremely important.
And I don't care how low the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates. If the United States Congress is profligate in its spending, if it spends money like it's pond water, if it runs up $37 trillion in debt, and deficit spends to the tune of 7% every year, that also has an impact on employment and economic growth and inflation, does it not?
Absolutely, and I think people often make a mistake by looking solely at monetary policy when fiscal policy is a huge driver.
And in fact, The Federal Reserve can lower short-term rates through the Open Market Committee all you want. But that doesn't necessarily mean that long rates, 10 years and above, are going to go down, does it?
Not necessarily.
Right, because if the bond market counts too, doesn't it?
Of course.
If the bond, you can lower rates as low as you want to, but if the bond market thinks that inflation is on the horizon, those rates are going to keep going up or at least stay steady. Isn't that accurate?
Yes, the Federal Reserve does not control the long end of the yield curve.
Okay, so what Congress does matters, doesn't it?
Hugely.
My good friend Senator Warren says, you're Donald Trump's puppet. Are you Donald Trump's puppet?
Not at all. I'm very independently minded, as shown by my willingness to stray from consensus and have out-of-consensus views, and I believe that, I will continue to be as independent, in my thinking process, if confirmed.
We're going to hold you to that, Governor, future Governor. You need to call them like you see them. There's nothing wrong with politicians in Washington offering their opinions. You can't stop them. But we need a monetary plan that was put together by something other than vodka and darts. And that's what we had the Federal Reserve for. Now, you're going to get a lot of advice from politicians. I'm not saying they're always wrong. Even a blind chicken finds a mealworm now and then. But you've got to call them like you see them. And ignore, nothing wrong with people giving their advice, but ignore all the rhetoric from all politicians. Will you give me that commitment?
I do commit to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kennedy is not a conventional interrogator. Where many senators offer long-winded soliloquies, Kennedy opts for staccato questions. He often frames his inquiries with humor, sometimes dry, sometimes biting, and uses that levity to strip away unnecessary formalities. In this exchange, we see his style clearly. When Dr. Myron begins with the customary, "Thank you, Senator, for the question," Kennedy interrupts, "Don't thank me, it just takes up time." The line earns chuckles, but serves a purpose. It sets the rhythm. Kennedy does not want grandstanding or technical jargon. He wants clarity. The audience, both in the room and watching later clips, sees a senator who refuses to waste words. This method keeps the nominee on edge and prevents them from defaulting to polished, evasive talking points. Humor then appears again when Kennedy closes with a jab about needing a monetary plan that was put together by something other than vodka and darts. It's colorful, memorable, and effective at underscoring his skepticism about political gimmickry and policy design. Kennedy's rhetorical approach matters because it frames the witness. Dr. Myron, despite his credentials, is cast in the role of someone who must answer plainly to common sense. Kennedy, meanwhile, positions himself as the everyman, voice of reason, skeptical of elites, but not dismissive of expertise. Kennedy's opening question is deceptively simple. Do presidents, any president, generally appoint their enemies? Dr. Myron hesitates, trying to balance honesty with diplomacy. He notes that sometimes presidents do appoint adversaries, though often they don't view them as such in the moment. Kennedy presses further, cutting away nuance. Do presidents appoint people that they agree with on social and economic policy? The obvious answer is yes, and Kennedy extracts it quickly. His broader point? Political reality matters. Presidents may posture about bipartisanship or a team of rivals, but in practice, they select allies who reinforce their agenda. Kennedy uses this line of questioning to ground the conversation in realism. Governance is not fantasy. It is shaped by loyalty and alignment. This also sets up a later contrast. If presidents choose people who agree with them, then why do critics accuse Myron of being a puppet? Kennedy prepares the rhetorical soil before planting his defense of the nominee's independence. One of the most telling moments in the exchange is when Kennedy asks whether President Trump ever called Myron before or after making a public statement to ask for approval. The answer, unsurprisingly, is no. Here, Kennedy dismantles a caricature, the idea that advisors, even those close to a president, dictate or approve every word. Instead, he reframes the advisory role as one of influence, not control. This applies not only to Trump, but to Biden, Obama, and Clinton. Kennedy drives home the point by asking whether any aide to any president holds a job description that requires them to hold press conferences contradicting the president. The obvious no exposes the absurdity of critics who expect visible dissent. In doing this, Kennedy offers Myron cover against accusations of blind loyalty. He positions the nominee as a professional advisor whose independence lies in private counsel, not public theatrics. The heart of Kennedy's questioning lies in the contrast between fiscal and monetary policy. He acknowledges the Federal Reserve's central role in monetary control, setting short-term interest rates, managing liquidity, and influencing inflation. But he insists this is only half the picture. Kennedy launches into a vivid indictment of congressional spending. Congress spends like it's pond water. Debt has reached $37 trillion. Deficits run at 7% annually. His argument is straightforward. No matter how much the Fed manipulates short-term rates, if Congress fuels reckless fiscal behavior, the economy will still suffer inflationary pressures. The bond market will respond accordingly, driving up long-term rates regardless of Fed intentions. This section of the hearing resonates because it articulates what many Americans intuitively feel, that political overspending undermines economic stability. Kennedy forces the nominee to acknowledge that fiscal recklessness cannot be offset by monetary wizardry. Senator Kennedy's exchange with Dr. Myron was more than a colorful moment in a Senate hearing. It crystallized the delicate balance between fiscal recklessness and monetary control, between presidential loyalty and independent judgment, between political theater and economic reality. By cutting through pleasantries and demanding straightforward answers, Kennedy forced clarity on issues often obscured by jargon. His humor made the exchange memorable, but his substance made it meaningful. In the end, the lesson is simple. The Federal Reserve can influence the economy, but it cannot rescue a government addicted to spending. Independence at the Fed matters, but so does responsibility in Congress. Kennedy reminded both his colleagues and the public that we do not live in la-la land. The numbers are real, the debt is real, and the consequences will be real too.